All right, hey everybody, we're live. We weren't sure we were going to get to do Cloudy with a Chance of Learning today because we do have a lot of storms out there. We're going to continue to track those closely. We did have some strong to severe storms go through. We had tornado warnings. We have a flash flood warning. The tornado warnings are done, so are the severe thunderstorm warnings, but we still have a flash flood warning for Comal County. Now, the first lesson that we ever did was
Severe Weather 101.
And where do you live? That was your big thing, right?
Know your county and know your city. That's the biggest thing, because if your county or your city's under a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning, you know whether to take shelter or not.
Yeah, and know where counties and cities are around you, so you know, oh wait, it's off to my west, and this storm's moving east, and it's impacting this city. Oh, so it must be coming towards me. So it's important to know, different areas.
So today we'll be talking about storm surge with Cloudy with a Chance of Learning.
Yeah, it's Tropical Tuesday. It is my favorite time of the week. I love Tropical Tuesday. We always talk about things that impact us with tropical systems. I see Emily is watching. Jennifer says hello to April. Here, Ollie, come here. Our dog is whining a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about storm surge and what it is. Come here, bud. Sorry, guys. Going to give him some pets while we're doing the live today. So storm surge is the rise of water along coastal areas, often caused by tropical systems. Sometimes, though, it can be caused by systems that become post-tropical and also subtropical, which just means that a tropical system will lose some of its characteristics. It will become post-tropical if it was tropical before, or sometimes subtropical, and not just quite to that point.
And it all depends on the coastline too, right?
It does. And sometimes the surge can go up rivers and up into bays and lakes. We actually had that with Ike in 2008. Did you know that Ike in 2008, it was a Category, I believe, 2 storm, but it a 20-foot storm surge in parts of Texas.
It's just crazy.
But it was only a Category 2. And the thing is, that's why you can't compare any storm to each other. The 1900 hurricane that hit Galveston, the deadliest hurricane in history, what made it so deadly was the storm surge. And actually, the storm surge was not as high as, and it was a stronger storm. The 1900 Galveston hurricane hit the same area, but the storm surge was not as high as what Ike did in 2008.
Yeah, so we've been talking about how each storm has its own narrative. Each storm has its own story, so it's so important to pay attention to impacts versus the category strength of a storm. Of course, wind speeds are very, very important because the wind can often, cause storm surge.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is a big question in the meteorological community. There's been a lot of talks about this. Something that is not included in the ranking of a hurricane is storm surge. The ranking of a hurricane is strictly wind. But here we had Category 3 Hurricane Katrina that made landfall on the Mississippi Gulf Coast in 2005. It was the costliest hurricane to ever hit the U.S. It was a Category 3. Now, it was a Category 5 at one point when it was over the Gulf, but then it moved north into, let me turn down my computer real quick, guys. Sorry about that. It moved north into the Mississippi Gulf Coast, an area that is very susceptible. It's easier, rather, for y'all at home, for a storm in that area to produce a large storm surge. It was a 28-foot storm surge. That is the highest storm surge to hit the U.S.
Yeah, and it all has to do with the shallow coastline, right?
Yeah.
And you talked about the coastline too. So, the angle of approach to that's what we're kind of talking about with shallow versus a steep coastline. The shape is very important, the width and the slope of the ocean bottom and features.
Yeah, that width and the slope of the ocean bottom. That's something real unique. Hurricane Andrew, a Category 5 storm, when it hit South Florida, the big issue with Andrew was wind. Homestead, Florida got pretty much wiped out because of how strong those winds were with Hurricane Andrew in 1992. But storm surge wasn't as big of an issue. And it was a much stronger storm than Katrina and Ike. The reason why is because the sea shelf, basically, let's say you're walking out into the ocean. You know how sometimes it'll go down real quick and then it'll go down again slowly when you're walking on the coast down towards Port Aransas and Corpus Christi. Well, if you were to go out in the ocean down towards Miami and Homestead, you may be walking out and then all of a sudden it gets really deep, really fast, well over your head. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about the slope, how deep it gets with time as you go out.
I have a few commenters here. We have Ainsley's watching. Hey, glad that you're joining us this Tropical Tuesday. Stacy says, hi, y'all are doing great, guys. Thank you so much. Nice and sunny here in Pleasanton. Yeah, it's warming up nicely in Pleasanton right now.
Yeah, and we see hello from Addison. Addison's one of our loyal viewers.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're just now joining, you may not have seen this before. I see we have a lot of viewers because we do have some active weather out there today.
Yeah.
This is our Cloudy with a Chance of Learning segment where we keep the teaching going even though school is currently out. Every Tuesday we talk about tropical systems. Every Monday we talk about solar system.
Yeah, we talked about Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto yesterday, and we'll actually have part 4 of the solar system next Monday. So let's continue to talk about storm surge because there's a lot of interesting factors. I know that, you know, hurricane season, we already have a disturbance that could form.
That's right. And guys, you know, there were some more graphics that I was working on with this, but because we got so wrapped up in severe weather earlier, I didn't get to wrap them up. Here's something to know. We do have a medium chance of hurricane tropical development, could become a tropical depression, tropical storm near the Bahamas. Now, this won't impact Texas.
Yeah.
This is going to stay far away from Texas, and it may even cross the sea and not impact the United States at all. That's possible. But it is something to look out for. It would be Arthur. If it received a name, that would be the first name on our list here.
And of course, our KINS 5 weather team will keep you updated with that system. Like you've been saying, it's not going to impact Texas. Looks like a cold front's going to push it out toward the Atlantic Ocean. So even though the Atlantic hurricane season and hurricane season in general officially starts on June 1st, it's not systems to go ahead and form in May. Already heating up, we're in that transition season. It's still technically spring. Just like the fall, you get the transition season. So you have more cold fronts, warming up, cooling down, warming up, cooling down, all of that stuff.
Yeah, and so switching gears back to storm surge too. So 49% of deaths from tropical cyclones in the United States, so that'd be tropical storms and hurricanes and things like that, are caused by storm surge. So remember, this takes into account inlet flooding, tornadoes, wind. Ollie, no. Give us 1 second,
He's gonna bark again.
Let me introduce our dog. We've done it on a Facebook Live before, but
he likes barking at the mailman, so we're definitely going to hear him bark kind of a lot. So this is our little weather mascot.
Yeah, Oliver. Say hello to all the kids at home.
He does not like being held.
There you go, bud. But that if you hear him bark, that is he's just trying to say hello to the people outside.
Yeah.
So but that's taking into account that 49%. The other 51% is wind, tornadoes, all these other things. So storm surge for almost half of the deaths from tropical systems. So what drives storm surge? There's 2 things that drive it. There's pressure-driven surge, which is minimal. So you see how the winds go up in a hurricane here? That's going to be the storm almost sucking up the water, pulling it up.
Air rising too.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm out of breath from picking up Ollie. Excuse me, guys. I'm a little bit out of shape. I need to start working out more, I guess. All right, or maybe Ollie needs to lose some weight, huh? But the water rising will be from the storm almost pulling up that water. So it'll pull up the ocean water. But that's not the main cause of surge. The main cause is wind driven. So the wind pushing the water up onto the land.
So we talked about wind. Wind plays a huge role in, distinguishing the category within a hurricane. We talked about the hurricane hunters and how they drop a dropsonde into a hurricane. We see the maximum sustained winds. That's factored into what category that storm or that hurricane will become. And then that's also why wind is so important, because it's the reason for a storm surge.
Yeah, exactly. That's what causes that storm surge to be so bad. And there's different parts of the storm that have worse storm surge. It all depends on the storm movement and its approach to the coast, and which direction it's approaching the coast, and how the coast is shaped. So the front right quadrant, the front right side of the storm, is the maximum storm impact. That's where we have the largest storm surge. And when Hurricane Katrina hit the Mississippi Gulf Coast, it hit, the front right side hit the Mississippi Gulf Coast. The front left side hit New Orleans, and actually it didn't have as much surge in New Orleans. It came from something else. I'll talk about that in a moment. I was working on a graphic for that, but we'll still show that graphic even though it's not done, and we'll talk about it. But that's the maximum storm impact. Now the front left, because you still have the wind pushing the whole storm forward, the front left can still have significant storm surge. It's just not the highest.
So we've always talked about, the worst part of a storm system or a hurricane would be the front right quadrant. So this is when you break it down into fourths.
And so the back left is typically weaker, but still dangerous. The back right has significant wind and can cause surge. Here's a look at what surge will look like. Notice as the wind continues to pick up speed, you see about 15 to 25 miles per hour there. The water creeps up onto land, and the wind can be a really big issue for trees and things, but you see the water creeping closer and closer to this home, and that water will come into people's homes and then cause the home to collapse. That's one of the big things why we see such serious damage along coastal areas. Hurricane Michael along the Florida Panhandle, when it hit there, it caused a lot of issues near Apalachicola. I believe the area is known as Mexico Beach, and it caused a lot of storm surge there, and you saw homes get taken off their foundation and moved. That's why storm surge can be so dangerous. It's definitely not something that you want to really deal with. So the National Weather Service a few years ago started to issue storm surge watches and warnings. And
this is an important product, by the way. I think it's a genius.
Yeah, this was really needed because they did not have this before. Kind of after Hurricane Katrina, they looked at how can we be better about warning people about surge, because everyone with Katrina seemed more concerned about the wind. How strong is the wind going to be? Is the wind going to be this bad? And then I've heard the 911 calls because I worked in Biloxi, Mississippi at another news station, and we had aired the 911 calls, and people were calling in, and they were in their attics, and they were saying, the water is in my home. I can't get out. The water is in my home. And the 911 operators just had to tell them, that's why there was a mandatory evacuation. There is no way we can get to you. We're so sorry. And the people just respond, I just wanted to let you know where we are. We're going to die. I mean, it's that serious. And they wanted to find a way to make sure people understood the danger with storm surge. So storm surge watches are a new thing.
Now, is this storm surge watches, of course, they're going to vary from coast to coast, because we were just talking about the coastline details. So if it's a shallow or steep coastline, that's going to impact how much storm surge a particular area will see.
Yeah, I see Jennifer is that, first of all, Stephen made a rude comment, and Stephen, you can sign off. There's no problem. We want to make sure everyone continues to have their manners when they come visit us. Go grab them, and then you can come back to our Facebook Live. Jennifer says, do you two live in the same house? Jennifer, the answer is, she's my fiance. We've been together for 8 years. So yes, the storm surge watches, though, a possibility of life-threatening surge along the shoreline from a tropical, subtropical, or post-tropical storm. So again, I mentioned that earlier, subtropical and post-tropical. Sometimes they don't have tropical characteristics. Storm surge warning is when the danger of the life-threatening surge is expected along the shoreline. So the watch could be issued 48 hours in advance, and then the warning will be issued about 36 hours would be before the surge occurs.
So plenty of time.
Yeah, plenty of time. So they give you plenty of time to go ahead and be prepared, and typically the National Weather Service will have that cone of uncertainty, and they'll be letting you know, hey, this is where we think the surge is, and we'll of course be letting you know too. And I think I just said the National Weather Service. They'll
National
be doing
Hurricane Center. Well,
we all work together.
communicate.
We all work together. If you were just watching our coverage of the tornado warning and severe thunderstorm warnings, we were talking about what we were hearing from the National Weather Service. So we all work together to keep people informed. So the National Weather Service and National Center, they issue these watches and warnings, and we help communicate those to the general public. All scientists and communicators working together. Meteorology is fascinating, is a fascinating field to work in. So I want to show you this graphic. This is the one I wasn't able to finish up because we had to work a little bit on the tornado coverage. But this was the approach of Katrina. It was directly into the coast. Remember how we talked about angle of impact? Well, notice how it's pretty much going straight in right there. You see the coast is kind of oriented like this, and this went straight up into the coast. The right side, the right front quadrant, remember that was the worst part of the storm, hit right there on the Mississippi coast. And this is where the water came in at for New Orleans. This is why New Orleans flooded. It was not so much river flooding along the Mississippi River. This is a real life scenario, guys. This is the worst surge event to ever hit the United States. This was serious. We used to go to the Mississippi Gulf Coast all the time when I was a kid, before Katrina and after Katrina, and I will tell you, it is amazing what happened to that coast. It's like a really strong community for them to come back from this. And our friends in New Orleans, the water came into an area called the Rigolets. That's located at the mouth of Lake Pontchartrain, which honestly is kind of a bay. It's called the Lake Pontchartrain, but it's almost like a bay more because it's tidal. And the water came in, and then the levees broke on the north side. They broke on the Lake Pontchartrain side first. Now, river levees broke too, but they broke on the Lake Pontchartrain side first. So that's because the surge was all coming in like this, the storm rotating this way. Remember, storms rotate like this. They rotate in this direction, and the water came in. It had nowhere to go when it was pushing up against the land, so it tried to fill up this little lake, Lake Pontchartrain, remember, which also acts more like a bay. And then the water went over the levees on this side because the water came up so high. So a little bit of a real life scenario there with the comparison of Hurricane Katrina. And you know what? I would love to give a little bit. Let me see if I can drag this over and not have to take all the pieces with it too. Well, it looks like we're getting the arrow too. Guys, I'm sorry. Again, we got a little wrapped up with severe weather coverage earlier.
Right.
But I want to point out how Ike came in. Ike, so an approach like this, if it's out here spinning, let's do our best here to draw. So if a hurricane was out here spinning and it came off to the north and it hit the coast like this, going straight north, just Katrina did, but with the Texas coast instead, the surge would not be as serious. Which is kind of wild when you think about it like that. You talk angle of the coast whenever we were talking about the factors.
And how the worst side is going to be. So you have the maximum strength on the right.
Yeah.
And then, you have serious storm surge on the left side.
Yeah, and meteorologist Megan Massey laughed at me earlier yesterday when I was practicing trying to figure out how to explain this the best for you. So all the kids at home, I want you to do this. Clap your hand. Notice how you get a lot of power out of that. Now do it at the same speed, but do it like this. You brush up against it, and you don't get that same power. So that's what the hurricane's doing. It's not hitting it dead on with the strongest winds. It's hitting it, and it's hitting it at kind of an angle, and it's just brushing off to the side. Now, a hurricane that does this on the Texas coast, not as serious, but Ike did this. It was more of a direct impact. That perpendicular is what we call that perpendicular impact, just like that. For those who may be some of the older kids in our classroom talk, that's a 90-degree angle that it would hit something at. That's what happened with the Mississippi Gulf Coast. That made it so bad. I'm going to erase some stuff real quick. I'm going to go back to another comparison with the Mississippi Gulf Coast. I know that I'm trying to explain more to the Texas coast, but I've studied a lot on surge with the Mississippi coast, having worked there. Another comparison is Camille. Camille was a Category 5 hurricane.
Very powerful.
It had a big storm. I think it was 22 feet, but it was a much stronger storm than Katrina. Same spot. It made landfall in Pass Christian, which is just east, by about maybe 5 miles to 10 miles east of where Katrina made landfall. And Camille came in like this, more of an angle. It wasn't so direct. So you didn't have that. It was more of a kind of an angular hit, not as perpendicular. Ainsley says geometry. I just learned that before this. Ainsley,
nice.
Awesome. I'm glad you got to learn about this a little bit. But Ainsley, yes, it's just like that. So as scientists, this is a real life scenario. Sometimes you go through school and you say, when am I ever going to use this? This is one of those situations where as a scientist, we study this and we learn more about it. I'm trying to see a little bit more what people may be saying. We encountered a storm surge in Rockport during Hurricane Harvey. That's right. Harvey was a cat. Was it a cat? What was it when it hit Rockport?
It was Category 5.
Or 5?
It was Category 5 for just a little bit because it stayed over water.
So yeah, big storm surge in Rockport. I know that they had a lot of damage down there too from that.
Definitely. In fact, we, at my old news station, I used to work at our sister station in the Waco Temple Clean area. We went down to Ranch and the Victoria and Corpus Christi area to give out water bottles. And we looked at, all sorts of damage. We drove around just a little bit to see. It was with my old weather team, and very eye-opening. Yeah.
And Megan, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Harvey hit kind of like this? But a little bit more of an angle, I guess.
A little bit more of an angle.
Wasn't it more like this? So it wasn't as perpendicular. So it wasn't as bad as what the storm surge could have been.
It wasn't a diagonal. It wasn't so perpendicular.
Yeah. So it wasn't so much this. So ignore that. I'm trying to erase it. Guys, doing my best. Again, this graphic was not done just because we had that severe weather coverage that we had to do. But it wasn't as perpendicular with Harvey. But Rockport is located kind of near my cursor. It's actually I believe it's maybe just off to the east of that. But it was not as perpendicular as what it could have been. So thankfully the surge wasn't as bad as what it could have been with Harvey. Let me see this. Left several inches of mud throughout our condo, and we found a dead crab in our kitchen. Wow. Is there a meaning behind some are women names and men names? Yes, actually, yes, they fluctuate. So you'll have 1 year that your A name will be a man. The next year it'll be a woman. The next year will be a man. Same thing with the B name. So it'll be Arthur.
And they'll retire names too if the storm is severe too, like Katrina.
Yeah, so it'll be Arthur, and then I think it's Bethel or Berthel or
I think it's Bertha.
Bertha? Let's see. I've got it right here, guys.
Bertha.
It is. Yeah. It's Bertha. I'm not sure where I was going with Berthel and Bethel, but yes, Bertha is next. So that would be your woman. Cristobal, man. Dolly, woman. And it goes back and forth just like that. So I hope that answers your question. Patrick says, hi, Megan and Andrew. Hello to you.
Hey, Patrick.
Hello to Marianne. I hope you're doing well today. It was devastating, the damage. My fiance's family lives there, and best friend's boyfriend stayed to help the firefighters. Very scary. Wow. Tropical systems can be so terrifying. And again, I want to bump it back to this map that wasn't necessarily just completely done yet, because I want to show something, guys. The storm surge with Ike, that was such a serious storm. I'm actually going to just put this arrow right here. It went up all the rivers to the east of Galveston, way upriver. I mean, I think it was something, I was reading a study by the National Weather Service. I think it was maybe like 30 miles inland where the surge went up. If you've ever driven I-10.
Long way.
Yeah, if you've ever driven I-10 east of Houston through Baytown and then closer onto Lake Charles, you know there's a lot of rivers and tributaries. That water all went way up. and was a big issue. 2008, Ike. Was it 2008? Yeah, it was 2008. Sorry, I was questioning myself.
Amber said Rockport strong though, bounce back stronger for her. Yeah, definitely. And that's something I talked about a lot. You know, with Texas, a lot of us are very connected. And when I worked in Central Texas, Waco, Temple, and Killeen, oftentimes when I was a morning meteorologist there, I would say, hey, you know, I know Houston is getting a lot of publicity because of the flooding. It's a bigger area, more populated. I get it, but let's not forget our friends in Rockport and Port Aransas and also along the coastal bend because they need our help too. So, I mean, we donated thousands of water bottles. It was just an amazing experience to shake some hands down there at the time, and just very eye-opening experience.
Yeah, I told Megan about it whenever it was this event was happening. We were still together at that time, but we were working in different places because it can sometimes be hard to get to the same place in this industry when you're together. But I was in Biloxi, Megan was in Temple, and I told her, I was like, you know, this is going to be a lot like Katrina for these smaller coastal towns. But thankfully, these Texas coastal towns got a lot more help. New Orleans got a lot of the publicity, kind of like what Houston did with Harvey. And a lot of people ran to New Orleans for help, which they needed it. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to say New Orleans didn't need the help, but the Mississippi Gulf Coast took the brunt of the storm. They took the biggest storm surge to ever hit the U.S. Just a lot of people didn't think to go help them. The community of Waveland is a community that was always on my mind when I think of Katrina, because if you go to Waveland today, there's still a downtown, a small downtown, but a lot of the homes that were there are just gone. So, but yeah, sometimes the smaller communities don't get as much attention. I'm happy that Rockport came back so strong.
They did. I mean, just amazing people in that community as a whole. Port Aransas too, met a lot of folks there just willing to help. And it was the summertime. I remember it being very hot, very humid, but you know, regardless of the heat, everyone was jumping in to help at the time. It was just amazing to see that. Same for Houston as well. I mean, so many people helped out with that.
Yeah. And I see more questions coming in. But guys, you know, we'll continue to, of course, have these Cloudy with a Chance of Learning segments. We're about to wrap it up for today. Again, today was mainly about storage. Let me scroll down here real quick. I want to see if I have this one graphic in here. Give me one second, guys. Oh, there it was. We'll continue to do Cloudy with a Chance of Learning, of course, each day. Tomorrow is Computer Models 101. That's going to be at 1 p.m. about all the computer models we use to forecast, as well as for tropical systems.
Yeah, and there are so many different maps we look at, from the jet stream with 250 millibars down to 300 millibars, which is very high into our atmosphere, high into the sky. And then you have 850 millibar maps that we always look at. And then there are surfaces. So there are so many computer model updates along with models themselves. So that's just going to be an interesting topic on Wednesday. Thursday, we'll be talking about how heat affects the body. You kind of talked about it a little bit with evaporative cooling. So that'll be a fun topic on Thursday. And then Fun Time Friday, which is when you share your stories and your pictures. Just make sure to use the hashtag Kins5Eyewitness. You can email us your pictures or your favorite topics, or even email us with a topic that you want us to cover.
Yeah, we'd love to cover it for you. I'm sorry we got on a little late. Again, we had just hopped off of the severe weather coverage. We had a quick meeting with the news team, and then we wanted to hop on here, and because we didn't want to miss out on this. I love Tropical Tuesday. I look forward to this every week. So I hope y'all got to learn a lot. I see a few comments. Lucas says hello. Hello, Lucas.
Hey, Lucas.
Elizabeth says hello. Hello to you.
Hey, Elizabeth.
I see. Are we going to see more storms tonight in San Antonio? We'll look at that actually before we head off. So we'll answer that question before we sign off of here, Grace. Amber says, thank you for doing this. No problem. Frank says, thank you for putting these for us. Great job. Frank, no problem. I hope you y'all really enjoy it. Tiffany says, what just happened in New Braunfels? The answer is there's a lot of heavy that just moved through. And the Guadalupe River is rising rapidly. Let me see the latest forecast on the river. Last that I saw, it was reached the crest at 6.7 feet. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm reading some things from the National Weather Service. Now I'm checking the river levels and the river forecast. It's loading. So I'll answer that in just a second. Thank you both for today's Tropical Tuesday. Interesting lesson. No problem.
Thanks, Paula.
And we'll see you later, Amy. Hope you have a great day. Let's see here.
So
still expected to crest at 6.7. So that's going to be a lot on River Road, north of New Braunfels. Flooding is not expected to be an issue south of the Comal and Guadalupe River connection in New Braunfels. So we'll watch these rivers closely. We'll keep you updated on KENS 5 and KENS5.com. If we feel like we need to hop back on here and cover severe weather, we will. But you can see a lot of those stronger storms moving away.
They are moving away, but we're still under that tornado watch. Bexar County, that includes San Antonio, under that tornado watch through 5 p.m. today. So we're still looking at this, unsettled weather pattern, this disturbance right over Texas right now that's really bringing in that shower and thunderstorm activity. Nothing severe, but we'll watch showers and thunderstorms closely because it is possible for additional showers and storms to pop up during the afternoon hours into early evening.
There was a lot of heavy rain today. There's a flash flood, there's some flash flooding possible. Please stay out of the flooded areas. Do not try to cross flooded roadways. Turn around, don't drown. And have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. We'll keep you updated right here at KENS 5 and KENS5.com. Weather Chief Bill Taylor is on at 4 with the latest on the storms. And if we feel like we need to cut back on here, we will.
We definitely will.
Yeah, you'll have a great one.
Yeah.